Today, we're going to be taking a peek behind the curtain of trading markets and how they work, so that you can understand the differences between traditional finance and what happens in the crypto world. Traditional finance has been evolving for 300 to 400 years. It's gone through many different crises, which have led to laws, legislation, and rules. That's why there's a wide variety of companies that exist in this space. If you've ever been confused by all the different names that get thrown around when you listen to CNBC, today we'll explain some of those for you. To start, we're going to be talking about buying and selling. On the left, you have a buyer who has funds. On the right, you have a seller who has something to sell. Now, we're talking about the stock market here, so these are stocks, but you can imagine this is a buyer and seller with a bike. Now, to buy and sell, you have to find the person and physically be located with the person. Finding a person is pretty hard. That's why things like Craigslist exist, Facebook Marketplace. All of these things are marketplaces to connect buyers and sellers. So that's why something like an exchange is created. Again, this is something like a Facebook Marketplace or a Craigslist. It's a place where you know you can go, where you know people are selling things, and you know where buyers will come. It's how you get eyeballs on it. In traditional finance, you've probably heard of companies like NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. These are two of the biggest stock exchanges in the United States. And this is where buyers and sellers can come and buy and sell stocks. So that's all well and good, but again, you have to rewind hundreds of years. Imagine, back in the day, I had to physically go to the New York Stock Exchange to buy and sell goods. That's no good. Wouldn't it be easier if I sent someone that lived in New York and did that for me? And that's where brokers came in. Now, instead of going myself to buy and sell goods, I would send a broker who would do this in my place. Now, lots of us use discount brokers such as E-Trade or Fidelity. You can also use a broker such as Morgan Stanley. So we have the buyer, we have the seller, we have our broker who's going to New York for us to buy and sell goods. But doesn't that person have a lot of power? They have my money and they have the ability to set the price I pay for a good. Also, it's pretty difficult to find a buyer and seller. If we go back to our example of Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, it often takes days, if not weeks, to get something bought and sold. And if you think about how trading works on the stock market, you can place a buy or sell order and that can fill instantly. How does that work? Well, there's these things called market makers that show up. What does a market maker do? Well, just like it sounds, a market maker buys and sells assets, and they do this at very high frequency. And what they're allowing you to do is buy and sell instantly. So when you put a buy order in, there's always someone that's willing to sell to you. And when you put a sell order in, there's always someone that's willing to buy from you. These are names you've most likely have never heard of. These are firms such as Jane Street, Virtu, Jump Trading. These are the high frequency traders on Wall Street. And we'll take a quick aside here to talk about how they make money. In traditional finance, there's something called an order book. And an order book is literally what it sounds like. It is a list of quantity and prices. So because this is traditional finance, it has to be confusing. On the left-hand side, you have the bid. On the right-hand side, you have the offer, sometimes also called the ask. What is the bid and the ask? Well, the bid is from the perspective of the market maker. It's how much they're willing to buy. So this is the price you can sell at. And what is the ask? The ask is the price you can buy at. And you can notice that the ask price is always higher than the bid price. Why is this? Because they're always willing to sell to you for a little more than they're willing to buy from you, and that's how they make money. And that is the difference right there, and that's what's called the bid-ask spread. In this case, in an old example, it's $1.30. You'll notice again, this is at the top of the book. What is that jargon? Again, that's Wall Street speak, meaning that is the best price for the smallest quantity. You'll notice if you actually try to buy Bitcoin at 8,672, again, this is an old screenshot, you can actually only buy 0.02 Bitcoin at that price. So that's the role of the market maker. They're filling the role of having someone always able to buy, have someone always able to sell, and they get paid for that service. In this case, $1.30 difference because they're taking on that risk for you. A lot of power given to the broker if they have the ability to hold your money, set the price, execute the sale for you. So don't you want someone else to hold your money? The person that has the best skills to trade for you might not have the best skills for securing your funds, and that's where a custodian comes into play. Some common custodians on the street, well, these are the biggest guys on the street, are State Street and BNY Mellon. Now, these guys, literally, their job is to hold your money safely. Now we have almost a fully functioning market. We have the buyer, we have the seller, we have the broker who's meeting at an exchange, who's doing the trade with market makers who make it very easy to buy and sell. And you have your custodian who keeps your money safe. But if you think about how the market works, you have to actually give assets over. So when you buy a bike, someone has to give you the actual bike and you have to give them the cash. But in a market like the stock market, people are trading hundreds of thousands of times per second, per day. This one buyer might buy, then sell, then buy, then sell the same asset over and over. So wouldn't it be nice if we netted this all down and just came to one final number that we owed each other daily? And that's where the role of the clearinghouse comes in. Instead of having us swap stock and cash over and over for every trade, these exchanges keep track of the net position. So that's literally just summing the buys and the sells and telling everyone what they owe each other at the end of the day. Now, these exchanges often operate their own clearinghouses, and these give instructions to the brokers, to the custodians of how to swap money. We're not quite done yet. We have the ability to buy and sell at a centralized location. We have people holding our funds securely for us, and we have them settling or swapping these assets securely for us. But I mentioned this happens hundreds of thousands of times per second. And in this example, we only have two different buyers and sellers, but you can imagine with hundreds of thousands of buyers and sellers, this gets very complicated to know who to pass money to. And that is the role of the Central Securities Depository. Now, this is a company you've almost never heard of. In real life, this is called DTCC. And what all of these banks decided was it would be easiest if they all just held all their money at one central location. And so when you're swapping it and settling it at the end of the day, it's literally just updating the ledger on a computer. So that's an overview of how traditional capital markets work. Now let's talk about how crypto capital markets work. In crypto capital markets, you have the same exact problem. You have a buyer and seller. You have someone that wants to buy Bitcoin. You have someone that wants to sell Bitcoin. They can also go to an exchange. In crypto, it's pretty different. There's hundreds of different exchanges you can go to. Some big examples that exist today are Coinbase, Binance, Kraken. You have direct access to these exchanges. Same problem. You want to be able to buy and sell easily. So there are also market makers. These market makers are, lots of them actually come from traditional finance. Some of the big ones in the space, Galaxy, Wintermute, B2C2, Flow Traders, there's a bunch of them. And that's actually it. That is the world of crypto capital markets infrastructure. You do not need a broker to access these crypto exchanges, which is very different. If you actually tried to show up at the New York Stock Exchange, you would not be able to trade today. There's no separate entity holding your funds. You send your money to Coinbase. Coinbase has your money. This is the world of crypto today. It looks like this because crypto's been around for 15 years. So it hasn't had the hundreds of years to evolve that traditional finance has. Also, some of it's a little by design. there's a bit more efficiency gained when things are verticalized. So that's the world today. Traditional finance versus crypto capital markets. Because there are so many, I'll call them middlemen in traditional finance, there are a lot of fees. It's a lot more expensive to trade in traditional finance. One upside of traditional finance is there's also lots of regulation. As I mentioned, it's been evolving for hundreds of years. There's lots of laws. It's gone through lots of crises. So that means it's had a lot of time to evolve and put in protections for the retail consumer. That's you and I. But there are Gordon Gekko types. This is a industry that's driven by money. It's handling money. And so this is the kind of culture that you get from it. What about crypto capital markets? Well, much less mature, as I described. However, there is lots of access. Anyone can go onto any of these exchanges that I mentioned. You can actually have lots of pricing power. Now, practically, this isn't doable, but there's no national best bid and offer price. The NBBO is in traditional finance, which is a price that your broker has to give you or beat. It is the market price. That doesn't exist in crypto. You could log on to Coinbase and see a price, and you could log on to Binance, and the price could be much better or much worse. And there's nothing illegal about that. Finally, the kind of characters that are in crypto, there are lots of people that cross over from traditional finance, but you also have the people such as SBF, who were effective altruists, or in SBF's case, just an outright criminal. One of the big differences in crypto is that there's no independent party holding your funds. The exchange can do whatever it wants with your money. It will likely keep it safe because that's what it's in the business of, but there are examples of it going poorly. SBF being one of them. Mt. Gox is a much older one. That's also an example where they got hacked. Exchanges aren't in the business of keeping your money securely. They're in the business of helping you trade. And because everything's vertically integrated in crypto, it's much more efficient. You eliminate all these middlemen. So it's a plus for efficiency. It's a minus for independent checks and balances. That's it for today. I hope you liked this video. If it was helpful, please like and subscribe. We'll be covering how decentralized finance works next.